Rick, it's good to see you.
Good to see you, Keith. Good morning.
Good morning. I'd like you to kick this one off. The title is You're Either Living Life or Fighting with It.
I love that. I've got a great story for you about that. It just happened this morning. So here's what it is. The older I get, the more awkward I am. And by that, I mean I have trouble, balancing the same way that I used to. I have trouble managing two things at once. I'm sure I couldn't play bounce or fly anymore, where you throw the ball and then hit it to somebody in the outfield, because I probably couldn't hit the ball because my eye coordination has been degraded so much by my age. So my point is that these physical things that I notice that I'm not nearly as proficient at as I used to be start to trouble me, and they trouble me to such a degree that I'll act out and become frustrated. And so I call this Rick experiencing physics. Now, it has nothing to do really with physics, but it's a shorthand way for reminding me that I ought to smile, accept things, and not fight them. And here's what happens. So, for example, this morning when I'm coming in to turn on the computer to do our thing, I poured a cup of coffee. I'm walking, I tripped, the coffee falls, the cup hits the deck, porcelain pieces all over the place. And I went into a tirade. I picked up the pieces, I threw them against the wall. I kicked the puddle of coffee. I started swearing. This is like a half an hour ago. So, if you think this is enlightened, that's an example of my enlightenment right there. So that was an example, Keith, of me fighting and creating an obstacle that I otherwise wouldn't have created or wouldn't have to suffer for, because it's an affect of my own mind. I'm thinking, I'm old, it's happened again, God dang it, I don't like this, blah, blah, blah. So I go into this tirade and act out. That's fighting life. Now, it took me a while to settle down, and then after I realized how foolish it was, and I cleaned up the wall and the floor and threw the things in the garbage, I had to have a little talk with myself and say, is this what you want to do? You're going to have things that are happening like this every day of your life, probably worse because of your aging. And you have a choice. You can either accept them and you can do the best you can with what you have, or you fight it. And when you fight it, you increase your trouble by 10, 20, 30 times. This is a simple thing. I could have dropped it on the floor. I could have said, oh, dang, gotten a rag and be done with it in 30 seconds. Instead, it took me a good 15 minutes. I felt my guts turning. I was angry. It revealed to me that there was anger an inch below my skin, a centimeter below my skin. That's what I'm full of. So that tells me it's something I got to work on. But my point is that fighting didn't get me anywhere. It hurt me. And so I think the better way to go, obviously, is to avoid self-creating problems.
Yeah, Rick, I'm right there with you. It's interesting that you brought up the aging. I played quite a bit of pickleball, and at the indoor place that we play at, when the ball goes over the gate or the fence, I'm seeing these guys who are 20, maybe 30 years younger than me. They're just coming up to the rail and just jumping over the fence. And I
Yeah.
remember being able to do that. And so I'm saying to myself, I know I can still do that. I know I can still do that. I don't know if
Oh,
I can
yeah.
or not, but then when some people hit shots, some of the guys who are 20 years younger than me, they're getting to balls, and I'm like, I could, why am I not getting to that ball? I could have gotten to that ball. And part of it is that for a brief period, I was like, oh my God, like I feel like I'm still like I still as fit and as my prowess is still like it was when I was in my 20s and early 30s. And I was resisting the what comes with physical age, right? You start to slow down, and listening to you, and a few weeks ago, I made my mindset up of that I'm just going to do my best. Maybe I won't get to the ball. I'll make the effort to get to it. At least I can do that, right?
Yep.
You know, so maybe this year I'm two steps away from getting it. Maybe next year I'll be five steps away with it, but at least I'll turn. But more important than any of that, I won't be suffering over it like I was
Mhm.
before. I won't be fighting. with life in this case with aging. I'll just accept it and do the best I can. And I'm finding that that's going to be much better for me, much better. Like I still think I have the footwork and you can train it. But I won't be attached to the outcome, and that is a beautiful place to be.
Yes.
You let go of attachment. And then what I'm finding is, or the way things should be, or identifying with a way that I should be. And I'm just in that space where I just want to live life. I just want to flow with life. And it's not resignation, it's not being cynical about life. It's being wise about life. Either you can live it and flow with it and do the best you can with how it shows up, or you can fight with it. And I'm a big believer, and I said this before, one problem is better than two. The first problem in this case with being quicker on the pickleball court and not getting to balls, that's problem number one. Me being upset about it, me being in denial about it, that's problem number two. One problem is enough. Let me just work on that. So Rick, thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to share before we close about either living life or fighting with it?
Yeah, and problem number two is always the one that you can control,
Yes,
right? Problem number one's often out of your hands, and that's where you have to work hard to get a solution and then detach from outcome. Problem number two, if you live your life properly, and I haven't been, but if I know the lesson is if you live it properly, you never have problem number two. And then that makes your life that much smoother and that much easier to live. And the last point on that is that, having all of these problems, when you realize that most of it is self-imposed,
yeah,
there's an enormous relief and an enormous sense, in my case, of gratitude that I was aware that I was doing something to myself. Now, if I wasn't monitoring myself and wasn't aware of how I behave and just went through life just not knowing anything about it and just doing what I wanted to do, I wouldn't have gotten that lesson. So I'm very grateful for being aware of my own massive limitations and my own massive faults, and that gives me an opportunity to work on them. And to the extent that I can manage these faults and not create additional problems when there is a problem, I can live a much better, fuller life that's self-actualized and directed by where I want to go rather than letting my feelings and my anger and all of the rest control me.
absolutely, Rick. I love that. Thank you so much, Rick, for a great show.
Thanks, Keith. Appreciate being with you. See you next time.
See you next time.